Hello and welcome back to another video review from the Geek Tech Show, and in today's video we're going to be checking out two different kind of shoes and find out which is the superior shoe. The first contender here is the Columbia with the insole made from Teclite. This specific shoe is the Columbia Redmond shoe. It's supposed to be waterproof or water resistant, that is. Actually, it says waterproof on them. Well, I give any shoe that is waterproof with a grain of salt because it doesn't have all leather to it. If it doesn't have all leather to it, after a while, most of those so-called waterproof shoes don't actually work. So I just want to let you know up front, any shoe that claims it is waterproof, unless it's 100% leather, I wouldn't trust it. But that being said, unless you wear it and check it out, you just never know if it is or it's not waterproof. So this is the first contender we have here. The second contender is the Merrell with the insole from the Vibram. And this specific one is a favorite of mine. So this Merrell, made in Vietnam, Merrell Moab is the name of this one. So Moab versus Redmond. The names are so familiar. Interesting enough, this is as if two different companies decided to copy each other's designs. They look almost entirely identical, and if I flip them really fast, you can't even tell the difference between the two. This one is also supposedly waterproof too. I think it actually says water resistance on them. Made in Vietnam, Vibram insole. And let's go ahead and compare those two shoes in case you are looking for the perfect shoe for you to go ahead and start hiking right away. So which one should you actually get? Well, in terms of weight wise, let's check it out. Substantial. Both of them feel substantial, about the same. The Columbia shoe material feels, the feeling test, I don't know, I don't really like the feeling of this thing. It's an interesting kind of a test, but it is really substantial. And what I'm trying to do when you feel those is the quality of the material. If it is soft and it feels light, then you know they invested some good money in making some really good shoes. The Merrell feels so much better. Now in the inside it feels good too. Look at the inside of this one. I would say they're about equal on the inside, just the outside a bit here. Another thing I like to test out is, well, the Columbia, it actually gets removed, you can take it out, and there is small holes in here, which is good for getting the air in and out. Some shoes don't let you actually take it out and put it back in, so that could be a plus or a minus here. The Merrell one, it also has holes too, as well. Has something here, make it feel a lot better. I think this is a little bit thicker than the other one, than the Columbia's. But you can really, I really am suspecting they reverse engineered, like one of those companies just went ahead and copied the different company, and they're like, okay, how do we go ahead and create something that looks almost the same, almost identical, and then try to beat it at its own game. I really feel like this is the case of copycats right here. The question is, who's the original copycat? Who copied who here? Did the Merrell copy the Columbia, or did the Columbia copy the Merrell? It's really hard to tell. They look so identical to each other. And you don't usually have a case where two different shoes are competing against each other and yet they look so similar to each other at the same exact time here. And it comes down to a personal preference sometimes. But I don't know, I'm just very enjoying the vibram insoles. I think every shoe that has vibram insoles always felt more natural, more better for me. But let's go ahead and put both of those shoes on and show you how they actually look like, and then I'm gonna wear them and tell you how I feel right inside. So this is a review of two different shoes. Interestingly enough, they look almost the same. The Moab and the Merrell. So the Moab Merrell is gonna be this one. The Redmond Columbia is this one. They look almost identical in every sense of the way. And this is right here, the Moab Merrell. And on the other side, you can see this, which is the Columbia Redmond. Both shoes look nearly identical. It is as if both companies competed against each other, trying to copy each other's shoe and see who will make the perfect one. The biggest difference between them, Merrell uses vibram as an insole. Columbia uses a different company. And this one is called Tech Light. The big difference between the two, I like the vibrams. The vibrams have the best insoles. But sometimes Columbia makes really good ones as well. So over here you can see the difference between the Columbias. Right here, this is the Columbia. And you can see the Merrell right there. Both very similar in every sense of the way. So if you're like comparing between both of those shoes, trying to decide, it's a little hard to figure out which one is which. In terms of looks, they're very similar to each other, almost identical in every sense of the way. But there is a few differences here. And once you put them on, you can really feel the difference. It's a lot more tighter in the Columbia. I feel a lot more tight inside. The balance is not as great as the vibrams. And the big difference is when you walk. So as you're stepping on, I feel more natural in the Merrell than in the Columbia. But both are not bad shoes. I do start to feel, right off the box, a little bit more tight on this side in the Columbia. I don't feel any tightness whatsoever in the Merrell. Now, could this be adjusted is the question. I could just open this up just a little bit and see if it works. But sometimes, just sometimes, you get those shoes and the tightness doesn't go away. So if right away you feel some tightness in the shoe, that's not a good sign. Sometimes you can break it in after a few tries, after a few days, but sometimes it doesn't go away. So right off the bat, if you put your foot in and you like how it feels, the shoe, it's gonna stay great. If it is already tight, this might actually be a long-term issue. It could be a bad batch too. So you gotta try left and right foot, and then maybe try a different kind of shoe sometimes. Sometimes it's just one specific shoe that gives us the problem. So except for this issue that I have, from some reason, the Columbia feels a little bit more cheaper as a shoe. It doesn't look cheap, but somehow I get this feeling like the material itself feels a little bit cheaper. I don't know why I'm getting this feeling. Maybe the looks of it, maybe this, just how big this is versus this one. but I feel a lot more right at home with those shoes instead. There's only one problem. My foot on the outside is a little bit more flexible, a lot more flexible than I really want it to be. But I think if I string it more, it's going to work better. So really between both of those shoes, the big difference might be actually in terms of price. And if you can get good deal on both of them, might be just a preference between that. But I would always wear them out. I would always try a shoe out and try it out to walk in a store before you buy them. Because you just never know which one is the better shoe. So after wearing those shoes out and trying them out outside, of which I haven't shown you footage of, but I'm not going to actually show you that specific footage this time. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. Anyways, who is the winner? Which is the better shoe? Is probably your question. Well, this was a pretty hard one, and I think overall it really depends on preference. And my preference, I mean, I've been leaning toward this as I was reviewing the review, but the Merrell seems to have the upper hand here. And I had a Columbia shoe for a very long time, and it was one of the best shoes ever. The question is, did the quality fall down, or was this just a bad shoe that they just didn't make right? I think the case here is just simply that they actually were copying the successful Merrell shoe. This is my thinking, and they just didn't get it right. There was a few things that they messed up in. It feels a little too tight here. There was just too much of this material over here. But this is good, by the way. Both of them do have the possibility right here that protects your foot, which is good. Some shoes don't have it. But the biggest problem that I have with it is just it doesn't feel as comfortable in it, and when I step on it, I don't feel it to be like really natural. It feels like I'm still constantly trying to adjust to this shoe. I'm not feeling it as good, the Columbia one. So I will give it like 7 stars out of 10. Yes, if you can get it super on sale, why don't you go ahead and knock yourself out and get it. And they're actually, interesting enough, they're both made in Vietnam too. So this is an interesting thing here. But between those two, the Merrell shoe just feels better, more substantial. It feels less cheap. It actually feels like a more expensive shoe too. When I'm wearing it, I feel a lot more natural inside of it. And I think between both of those shoes, this almost gets a perfect 10. Now, I'm not going to give anything a perfect 10 until I wear it for at least a year or so, and then see what's going to happen. Because you never know, like, if something starts to rip out, or of course the shoe doesn't outlast the test of time. It's not waterproof, it leaks water, or all kinds of things that can happen once you wear it. But before you wear it, the first impression is very important. So I highly suggest for you, before you buy any kind of a shoe, is to test it out and see how it feels on you. And even if it doesn't feel right away, maybe give it a day to break in. But if it doesn't work, either switch it for a similar or the same exact shoe, just to see maybe you got a defective product, because sometimes you do. It actually took me a few tries with one of my favorite shoes until I found the one that fits me. So sometimes it does actually happen. But thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you made the right decision and decided to get the best shoe out of there. And I think this one wins hands down in this ultimate battle of the perfect hiking shoe between those two. Merrell wins once again with the Vibram insoles. Anyways, if you did enjoy this show, and if you are interested in purchasing any of those shoes, there's going to be a link right down below, and please subscribe to this channel so you never miss another episode of the Geek Tech Show.